Hello, folks. It's Jaden Kaler here.
It's Shane Lemmel.
And it's Jess Claycomb.
We're the Upton Sports Talk, and this week we're going to be talking about the NFL and the top 12 draft picks we believe.
We'll also be taking a look at the best draft picks of all time.
And we'll also be talking about the greatest player by position of all time.
And then to wrap it up, we're going to talk about Coach Mick Tonkel and his impact on the Upton track program. So let's get it started off here with our own little kind of mock draft, and let's start with Shane.
Well, we're doing the top 12, as Jaden said today. And going number 1, I think Arizona. They could take Kyler Murray. I think that'd be a good pick for them.
I agree. Number 1 is going to be Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Kyler Murray, I think he has a lot of potential. He had a great season at Oklahoma. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. Great runner in the pocket, but very composed and can throw the ball really well. And they're about the same size as well. They had about the same NFL combine as well.
I don't think Kyler Murray's going to be that good, but based on all the hype around him, they've almost got to take him number 1. But I think Josh Rosen still not a bad quarterback. But
no, I think Arizona. I think it could be right. If this makes sense, it could be the right pick or the wrong pick, because they didn't give Josh Rosen time enough to develop, I don't think. But That's just me. And then at 2, I got San Francisco taking Nick Bosa. At 3, I got New York taking Josh Allen. 4 to Oakland, Quinnen Williams. 5, I got Devin White going to Tampa Bay at 6. I got New York drafting Dwayne Haskins, because I just think it's time to move on from Eli.
Well, I don't know if it's time to move on from him, but I do think they need to start building a potential backup, and then eventually maybe next year he can take over the team. And so far I agree. Nick Bosa is going to be a great player for the 49ers, I believe.
Yeah, you just take a look at Nick Bosa's brother for the Chargers, and he was injured a lot last year, but he had a great season. They play a lot alike, same position, same body built, same everything, so he has a lot of potential.
He had a little bit better of a combine than his brother did.
Yeah, and I think this year's draft is a lot of defensive players.
It's not a lot of offensive guys.
I mean, you got DK Metcalf, top wide receiver in this draft, I think. He's
Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, and then you got a good tight end from Iowa, T.J. Hawkinson. But other than that, not a lot of offensive skill set.
Yeah, this is a really great defensive draft class, but I think the guy that has a lot of upside is Josh Allen. If you watched any of his games at Kentucky this year, that dude was just an animal. He seemed like he was all over the field all the time, and he played really great for them, and his draft stock went up a lot because of that. And then there are some good offensive linemen in this draft, though, too. If you take a look at
Juwan Taylor's a good one.
He is, and so is Jonah Williams. He's good, too.
Yeah, and Devin White, I think, is going to be a really great player in the NFL.
Yeah, he has it all. He has the coverage and the run stuff.
Yeah, compared to Josh Allen, the other linebacker probably going to be taken early in the draft. Josh Allen is 6'5", 230, while Devin White is only 6'1", but 255, a lot of weight. But he can cover really well. He almost reminds me of Jabril Peppers from Michigan a couple years ago. And I think he'll be a lot like him. A lot of upside, good coverage, but can also attack the run as well.
Yeah.
And I had a quick question for you two. Jess, what do you think Denver needs? And Jaden, what do you think Cincinnati needs this year?
Well, those being mine and Jaden's two teams, I don't think my particular draft, I hope Denver takes a corner of some sort. I don't know who at this point.
I think if they're going to take a corner, then they should trade back that way.
Trade or forward?
No, back.
Earlier in the draft?
No, later, because they'll pay him too much money right away. They don't need to.
Yeah, true.
And there are no other none of
maybe
these
they could
teams are
get
going to
another.
take one.
Maybe they could get another pick as well if a team wants to trade up. If they're looking for another quarterback, Drew Lock from Missouri. I don't think Denver will take a quarterback as they traded for Joe Flacco this offseason, and they're going to see how he does, I
But
guess.
they could find his replacement to come up too, so he can mentor him.
They could as well. So we'll have to see about that one.
But with the Bengals, they have quite a few needs. They didn't have the best year last year, but with a new head coach, I think they ought to give Andy Dalton some time, so they don't need to draft a quarterback yet. So I think they're going to go on the defensive side of the ball unless there's Juwan Taylor or Jonah Williams still available, then they need to take one of them. But hopefully Ed Oliver slips a little bit and the Bengals can pick him up at 11.
Yeah, Denver could also use a offensive lineman of some sort. I mean, Case Keenum didn't have the best season last year, but I think a lot of that was the pressure that got to him, so I think they need to develop on their line a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with Jess. They need that, but I disagree with Jaden. It's time to move on from the tragic case that is Andy Dalton.
This quarterback
It's
class,
been
though, is
way
not that
too
good.
long. Well, yeah,
I think they need to give
They
him.
need to find somebody.
They need to
I
give
mean,
him a
take
year.
someone out of the stands for crying any sakes.
No, they need to give him a year and see how he does under Zach Taylor's new offense, because he's an offensive-minded coach.
Well, they've gave him plenty
coming
of
from
years.
McVay. So I think they need to give him a year, and I just think if they are going to draft the quarterback, then it needs to be next year or the year after that, when the quarterback draft classes are better.
I still think they need someone to come up.
We need bigger needs than quarterback right now.
That quarterback's a pretty big need. But anyway.
Let's finish out your.
But speaking of the draft, I think next year we'll have a lot of good potential. I'm pretty excited for next year. You got Tua, Jalen Hurts, Jake Fromm. You got a lot of potential in that draft class. I think could be one of the best draft classes ever, depending on the potential in that one. So.
All right, let's finish out your top from 7 to 12, Shane.
Okay, at 7 I got Jacksonville taking Juwan Taylor. At 8 I got Montez Sweet going to Detroit. At 9 I got Ed Oliver going to Buffalo.
See, I had the same picks for you as you did until that one. I have the Bills taking Jonah Williams out of Alabama.
Yeah, no, that'd be a good pick. They do need someone to
Especially
protect
with
Josh Allen.
Yeah, because he has a lot of potential.
Definitely,
He's a big
yeah.
dude. He can run, but he has a great arm. He can throw it so far. But I think they need to go offensive line so they can keep him up and healthy.
And like Jess said, at 10, originally I had Denver taking Drew Lock, but I do believe that Denver has other needs besides quarterback, because like Jess said, they just got Joe Flacco. So I have DK Metcalf going to Denver. I think that'd be a good pickup.
Yeah, I agree with that one. As Denver got rid of Demaryius Thomas, he wasn't playing too well. I don't know. Yeah, Demaryius Dropus, as I like to call him. Huge Denver fan, but didn't cut it, so they traded him. They're in need of they got Emmanuel Sanders and Cortland Sutton.
But Emmanuel's not getting any younger either. So.
No, and a solid third wide receiver put into there would be solid, and the duo in a few years of Cortland and DK Metcalf could really be a strong one.
Depends on what Cortland does. He's not.
Well,
he had a decent year. But
yeah, he had a decent wide receiver, but being the backup to Demaryius and Emmanuel most of the year, it was hard for him to really stand out.
And see, I do have the Broncos taking a quarterback just because they have John Elway, and John Elway is a quarterback, and I think he wants to groom somebody into that starting role here in the next couple of years and find his future quarterback now instead of waiting.
Yeah, and I think maybe as we talked about 1 through 7 or 8, I think those draft picks will be pretty much locked in. But after that, it's kind of an open book.
Because
There's a lot
Montez
of
Sweat's been dropping with his heart problem. And
yeah.
then,
There's a lot of
as well as Rashawn Gary.
in the rest of the first round could really be decided. Just
All right, so who do you have the Bengals taking, Shane?
Oh, like I said before, it should be Drew Lock or Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones
because-
is not first-round talent.
I know. That's how
But
scary
he's
and
one of
dire
the-
the quarterback situation.
but he is one of the top quarterbacks in this draft. I
He
mean,
is, but
knowing
if they're gonna take him, they better trade back.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe include Andy Dalton in that trade back.
I
If
have,
anyone will take
I have
him.
the Bengals taking Ed Oliver. And then to
That'd
finish
be-
it out, I have the Packers taking Rashawn Gary, that defensive end out of Michigan. He 6'5", 287. He's
Big boy.
yeah, he's gonna be. He
Big.
could be pretty good.
Yeah, could be solid.
So let's go with the best draft picks of all time. Our top 5 draft picks of all time.
Who do you got, Jaden?
Well, I think it's unanimous. Number 1 is Tom Brady, considering he was drafted 199th
Yeah.
and now arguably the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yes, arguably so. No matter how much I hate Tom Brady, he's one of the best. And he's still doing what he does best at 40, 42,
Yeah, 40 at least.
40.
I know he could be my grandpa.
Yeah, he's old enough to be a grandpa. So, what to say, end a second round draft pick. Is that what it was? End a second round?
Tom?
Yeah.
I think like
7th.
6th round.
Oh, I thought you said second.
I did.
No,
But
he was
isn't
like
it
6th.
7th?
No, he was a
Sixth.
6th round, 199th pick.
Yeah. So, being. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mistake on that one. I'm a big NBA fan, so I was getting those two drafts mixed up. As the NBA draft is only 2 rounds, but Tom Brady coming at the end of the 6th round, he's probably the best steal of any draft ever, and probably ever will be.
Yeah.
I agree with that being number 1.
At number 2, I have Dan Marino, and he was drafted 27th overall. He led the league in passing 5 different times, and in the passing touchdowns 6 times. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler and 2-time MVP. So when you draft somebody at 27, you don't think of a superstar player like Dan Marino.
No.
Who do you guys have at number 2?
I got Jerry Rice because he was the 16th overall pick, and he wasn't really highly recruited coming out of Mississippi Valley State. And he ended up having, you could argue, the best player career in any position
In the
of all
NFL.
time in the NFL.
Yeah, he's my number 3. Who do you have as number 2, Jess?
I got Brett Favre at my number 2, being a 33rd overall pick, 2nd round. That's probably he's probably one of. I don't know if I have Brett at my number 2. I just kind of put him in random order. But Brett Favre is probably my 2 or 3.
How organized of you.
Yeah.
Okay, Brett Favre is probably my number 2 or 3. Probably my number 2, actually, being a 33rd overall pick. He had a great career.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, he did. You can't argue with that.
No.
And he's one of the probably top 5 quarterbacks of all time. So that was a big steal in that draft, I think.
My number 3 is Jerry Rice, and as Shane already told you his stats, he is the best wide receiver of all time, almost unarguable. But he just had such a great career, one of the best ever at any position.
Yeah, my number 3, I got Randy Moss, who's arguably 1 or 2 best quarterback or wide receiver of all time behind Jerry Rice. He's probably the number 2, like Jaden said. He was taken 21st overall, and in that draft, 1998, there were 6 skill players taken above him, so he kind of wasn't highly recruited. as I think there was 3 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and even a wide receiver taken above him, which Peyton Manning taken number 1 overall in that draft was a really good pick, but I think Randy Moss was a big steal in that draft.
Who's your 3?
My 3 would be Joe Montana. And see, back then the draft had like 14 rounds, but Montana was taken 82nd overall, and I think you could argue behind Tom Brady, of course, he could be number 2.
He could be. You can argue him as the best quarterback of all time.
He could, because he's a 4-time Super Bowl champion. He won 2 MVPs, led the league in passing touchdowns twice, and he was an 8-time Pro Bowler as well.
Yeah, and I forgot what I was going to say, but he is one of the best, and he's actually my number 4, Joe Montana is. And just think about that duo back in the day, Jerry and Joe. It's pretty cool to have 2 of the biggest steals of all time on the same team at the same time.
Definitely. Who do you got at 4, Jess?
Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. Sorry, Jess. He never lost a Super Bowl either.
No, and that's what you could argue with him over Tom Brady, because Tom Brady lost to Eli Manning and the Giants twice.
Yep. Who's your...
My 4 would probably be Jerry Rice, but like I said, the 3 and 4 are up for grabs. Randy and Jerry, top 2 wide receivers of all time, probably. But Jerry Rice being taken 16th overall, that's pretty high draft pick. So I don't think he was that big of a steal coming in that draft.
I agree. He was taken 16th, and they should be good. But I don't think anyone thought he was going to be that good.
Yeah, if they would have thought he would have been that good, they would have taken him probably number 1 overall or top 3 at least. So being a 16th, he's one of my steals of any draft.
Who do you guys got at 5?
My 5 is Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and Ray Lewis is also a 2-time Super Bowl champ and a 1-time Super Bowl MVP. He played his entire 17-year career with the Baltimore Ravens, and in his career he ended up with 2,061 tackles, 41.5 sacks, 31 interceptions, and he also had 3 defensive touchdowns. But I saw something of that 12 of the 17 years he was on the Ravens team, they were a top 10 defense, and he was the leader of that defense every time. He was we haven't seen, in our generation, we haven't seen a player like Ray Lewis.
Yeah, I really agree with Jaden, taking 26th overall in that draft. I really agree with Jaden for that number 5, as he's arguably one of the best linebackers of all time.
One of the best defensive players of all
time,
too.
Yeah, defensive players in the whole of all time. Playing his 17-year career with the Baltimore Ravens, it says a lot about his character and his achievements as an athlete, because he wanted to build on that team, the Baltimore team. He wanted to build on it and prove and take all these young guys in that came every year from the draft, and he wanted to help them become better players. And as he did, as they won a Super Bowl, and he was the leader of that defense every year.
Who's your number 5, Shane?
My number 5, it could be a little controversial because it's kind of a higher pick. It's Ronnie Lott, who was taken with the 8th pick in the 1981 draft. But as you can see in that draft, there was a lot of highly touted, like Kenny Easley at corner was good. And Ronnie Lott was originally a corner, but he played safety. And I think as far as safety, he was a little bit undervalued because there was 2 or 3 safeties taken before him in the draft. And I just think being named to both the 80s and 90s All-Decade team and being a 4-time champ and a 10-time Pro Bowler, I think he's worth consideration.
I agree. And another person I think is worth consideration, even though he was drafted number 1 overall, is Lawrence Taylor, because the impact that guy had on the defensive side of the ball was pretty great.
Hold out, no.
Sorry, never mind. I meant number 2. He was drafted number 2, but I don't think anyone thought he was going to be that great when he played. Well, I mean, Lawrence Taylor was drafted number 1 overall in the all-time greatest players little thing, that 12 long-time NFL coverage people did. They drafted him number 1 overall, so I'd have to say he was a pretty good draft pick as well. All right, so now do we want to talk about the best players of all time on the offensive side of the football so far? So quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, and offensive lineman.
Yeah, for me, I have as my top wide receiver is
Well, Jess, why don't we start at quarterback first?
okay. Yeah, quarterback for me would have to be Joe Montana. Even though 49ers are one of the worst teams nowadays, he carried them to some good years, and he's probably one. And he, or my backup to that is Tom Brady, are my top 2 quarterbacks of all time by that position. And I don't think anyone will come close to that for a while. And if so, I think maybe Patrick Mahomes could do that nowadays.
Up-and-comer, I think, could be Patrick Mahomes. But right now it's Tom Brady and Joe Montana for me as well. But swap them for me, because Pat Mahomes has a long, long ways to go before he can be.
Yeah, and thinking about college doesn't mean a lot coming from Tom Brady coming so late in the draft. But I think some of this year and next year's draft will have some good prospects to come on that list maybe sometime in their career.
Yeah. Shane, what about your quarterback?
I got Tom Brady, and it was kind of a
The
tough
GOAT.
decision because Tom Brady, yeah, he's won 6 Super Bowls, but he's also lost 2. And I think, honestly, as far as Super Bowls, even, as I said, even though Brady won 6, I'd value Montana's 4 over Brady's 6.
I would not. 6 is more than 4. I mean, yeah, he lost 2, but 6, 4, do the math. What's more?
Yeah, Jaden, but Tom Brady threw sometimes multiple interceptions in those games where Montana never threw nothing but touchdowns.
But he also came back 28-3.
Yeah, and as a Bengals fan, you know about 80 yards.
Yeah,
Went
I know.
from about the 12-yard line.
I know, but that's
scored
not
with 49.
28-3 though.
Yeah, well, the Falcons lost that Super Bowl. The Patriots didn't really
No,
win
the
that,
Patriots
no.
won. Okay, so for running backs, I have Walter Payton as the greatest of all time. I mean, yeah, I know that Emmitt Smith holds a lot of records, but I think it's also due to the fact that he played for so long. And I think if Barry Sanders or Walter Payton would have played as long as Emmitt Smith, then they could have easily, well, I don't know about how easy, but I feel like they would be above Emmitt Smith termed in records-wise. And I think Bo Jackson could have been another one that would have been one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I agree with Jaden. My top running back would have to be Barry Sanders. Couldn't tackle the guy. Hardest to tackle, I think, ever. But
The only knock on him, though, is he leads the NFL in history for lost yardage. But if you look at his team, they were
yeah, it wasn't
god-awful.
all his fault the whole time, I'd suppose. And back up to that, Walter Payton, I'd have to put him second behind Barry.
Yeah, I got Emmitt Smith. I think just because longevity and just he holds all the records, and he kind of, you could argue, was the offensive reason why the Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls.
As of the 2019 offseason, though, a fun fact is Walter Payton still holds 31 Bears records. And Walter Payton threw 8 TDs in his career. I think that's pretty cool.
It is.
So, how about tight end?
I think there's about 3 people in contention for my list anyway. I picked Tony Gonzalez, but I could also any other day of the week take Antonio Gates or Shannon Sharp or even Kellen Winslow.
I
think
can
they're
agree.
all-
I think Tony's probably the best of all time, but I think Antonio Gates is up there as well. Jess, who's your tight ends?
My tight ends, my top tight end is Tony Gonzalez of all time, but it was a hard decision. There's 4 tight ends that stand out to me as all in that legendary group that'll all be easy Hall of Famers should be. And that's Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jason Witten, and Rob Gronkowski.
I agree. Jason Witten's a sleeper. I think he's one of the best.
Yeah,
ever played.
and he just came out of retirement. He just announced a couple weeks ago. So he's coming back for Dallas, and we'll see what he can do now. Maybe he'll get higher in the record books and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, did you already? Yeah, you already said yours, Shane. So, let's go to what do you guys want to do? Offensive line or wide receiver first?
Wide receiver.
All right. Well, my top wide receiver is Jerry Rice. I go back and watch some of the tape on him, and it just looked like the game just came so natural to him. And some of it, the reason why I think he's the greatest might be because of Joe Montana, but I think he also might have made Joe Montana one of the greatest too.
Yeah, you can kind of argue the reverse sides on each story. You can argue Rice made Montana what he is, or you could argue Montana made Rice what he is.
Either way, though, I think they're both
Yeah.
top 2 in their position. I think Joe Montana's
Definitely.
top 2 quarterback, and Jerry Rice is top
I
1 or 2.
Yeah,
wide
I think
receivers.
Rice, honestly. You could argue Randy Moss,
Yeah,
but for me, I think Rice is in a category all his own, as of right now.
Yeah, for me, Jerry separates himself quite a bit, but Randy Moss, I think, is one of those players that is almost up to his. But I think Randy Moss is almost in that conversation as well. He was just all around great his whole career. Couldn't be guarded by many people.
Randy didn't win a Super Bowl with Tom Brady, did he?
No,
So, Jerry Rice won. He was there for all 4.
he was 3,
But
And he
when
was
you
an MVP.
but yeah, and he played in 4.
But I don't think winning a Super Bowl is all to a great player, because football, you have to have everything. You have to have lineman, running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. Then you got to have your whole defense. If you have a crappy defense, you can't make it very far. So I think football, it's different when you're talking about
I agree. Because
the greats.
I think if Barry Sanders would have had a better offensive line and quarterback, I don't even know who his quarterback was. I think he could be considered the best running back of all time if he had a better support around him.
Yeah, and Randy Moss, not saying he had a terrible defense, and he played with Tom Brady, so, I mean, not a bad quarterback, but he couldn't go out there and play defense
Yeah.
or run the ball or throw the ball, so it's not all. Super Bowls aren't everything, I think.
Well, if you look back, and you may not know, but I kind of watch a lot of the football history. In 1998, the Vikings had the #1 defense and went to Atlanta, and the only reason they didn't make it to the Super Bowl was their kicker missed a field goal.
Yeah,
And Randy Moss that year, I don't know who the quarterback was, but like you said, there needs to be more. It's not like the NBA. You got to have at least respectable players at every position.
I agree. So, let's go to offensive line then.
But speaking of wide receivers,
Oh boy.
a couple, I don't think
There
that
we go.
I don't
There we
think
go.
they agree with this.
You know
But
we
a
don't.
few wide receivers that are in the NFL now that could be in that GOAT conversation towards the end of their careers or after their careers are OBJ, Odell Beckham, and then you got Julio Jones, and DeAndre Hopkins. Those are my 3 wide receivers that I think will be Hall of Famers soon, towards the end of their or after their end of their careers.
They'll be Hall
And-
of Famers, but they're not Jerry Rice.
And they could be in that
Moss.
top 5 conversation for wide receiver, I think.
Yeah, but we're
I
talking
think-
about top 1.
I think OBJ might be kind of laughable.
But
honestly.
OBJ is the fastest player in NFL history to reach 3,500 career yards. And that's with Eli Manning, so that's saying a lot. Eli Manning is very washed up right
He's
now.
the only wide receiver on his team,
And-
so Eli just
Well, you got Sterling
has to throw it
Shepard,
up there.
Evan
Hope
Ingram.
Odell's over there.
You got a few others for that New York team.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what he's made
And
of.
37 games to get there, so we'll have to see about that one.
All right.
I
I don't agree with that, but
think everyone, and I've said this a lot, I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. However, I've never in my years heard something so laughable from a person
no,
who is knowledgeable about this stuff.
you've heard a lot of nugget stuff.
Well, yeah, there's the nugget stuff, but I don't hold that
But
against
you
him.
can argue DeAndre Hopkins, Julio, and OBJ.
You can argue.
You can.
Well, that they don't have potential to be in that.
They don't.
And they don't have the best quarterbacks either.
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, who didn't play this year.
Okay, let's go to offensive lineman. Who's your best offensive lineman ever, Shane?
Well, I had to choose between Larry Allen and Anthony Munoz. I think they both played better, and I think the reason Larry Brown I picked, I think the reason, or Larry Allen, sorry. The reason Larry Allen's better than Anthony Munoz is because I chose Larry Allen because he has a Super Bowl, and Anthony Munoz, yeah, he got there a couple of times, but I just think winning helps. Who do you have?
Well, we just said earlier, Super Bowls don't mean a lot for the player. And you can't tell me it was Anthony Munoz's fault that the 49ers beat him in the Super Bowl both times.
Well,
That was the
no.
Bengals' defense, am I right? Because when Anthony Munoz was done, after he was done playing that game, they were up.
Well, no, I didn't say it was his fault, but I said getting there is an achievement.
Yeah, but you said winning.
Winning helps well, it does. Does it or does it not, though?
I think it's Anthony Munoz because
A biased Bengal fan, though.
no,
So.
if you go online and look it up, there's so many people that agree with me. Like out of the 3 we looked at today, Shane, how many of them said Anthony Munoz?
I don't know.
3. And it's not me being biased. I just think he actually is one of the best offensive, if not the best offensive lineman of all time because of how big of a staple he was for that Bengals offensive line and how great he was, and they never had to worry about him at all.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I can kind of see that.
All right, Jess, who's yours?
My top lineman of all time would have to be Bruce Matthews. Most people and I say he's the most versatile player or versatile lineman to ever play the game. One of his
What were you saying, Jess?
sorry, we are cutting out a little, but one of Bruce Matthews. Sorry, we were cutting out a bit there.
We weren't.
We were
actually.
cutting out. Our
He just
opponent
doesn't
know
came
what he's saying.
unprepared for his debate.
My top lineman of all time would have to be Bruce Matthews, like I was saying. One of his crazy stats is that he started at least 17 games at all 5 lineman positions, which, I mean, you got to have a brain, crazy IQ to play all 5 positions. They're all different. You all have to do different things of each position.
I can agree. He was.
His specialty was guard and center, but he also played 18 years in the NFL, which is pretty crazy for a lineman because they have to take care of some big dudes there on the defensive line, and
Yeah.
he was one of the best to ever do it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So why don't we move on to our last topic, and let's talk about T impact and for the track team.
And that's all the time I will have for today. And we'll let Jess and Jaden take it over for the next topic.
So a lot of us know, or a lot of you guys that listen to this know about Coach Mick Tonkel. He's the Upton track coach, and a cool fact about him is that he has won 8 state championships, and I think he's done a lot more than that. He's also coached so many individual state champions, and I've actually been on one of his teams that we won the 4x1 a couple years ago, and T was our 4x1 coach, and I think he brings more to the program than just the sports part. I think he wants to make sure we're all great people, and I think a lot of people need to understand how great of a person he really is, because he doesn't just coach his own team. He coaches, like when I see him at the pole vault pits, he coaches every single kid. Doesn't matter if you're good or bad or what, but he's a great coach, I think.
Yeah, I agree. When you think Upton track, you think Coach T because he's been here for so long. I don't know how many years in specifics. But not only track, but he also used to coach basketball. He even coached my dad in basketball.
And I think he coached football too.
Yeah, about 100 years ago, coached my dad. But like
hopefully Troy's listening.
Yeah, like Jaden was saying, he's not just a coach. I think anyone on the team, boys and girls, could get along with him and have a nice conversation with him any given day, and he'll teach you a lot of stuff. We'll probably go fishing sometime together. He was saying maybe have a fishing derby with the track team or something fun like that. And as of right now, he's not even getting paid to be coaching. He's just volunteering right now.
And
so
he's
that's
taking
kind
out
of
a lot of time because he loves outdoor stuff, and
he could be doing
time.
a lot of others, and he's a big part of the track team and us working hard to get to where we need to be at the end of the year.
But as I was saying, he doesn't just coach us. He coaches everyone and wants to make sure everyone succeeds. And I think it's pretty cool because that's hard to do as a coach because a lot of coaches don't coach the other team. But another cool thing is that he's coached a lot of our parents and coached against a lot of our parents. And I think all our parents still have nothing but great things to say about T. And I just want to thank T for all the things he's done for me, and I just want to thank him for all the time he puts in, and hopefully you guys see how much work he puts into this as well.
Yeah, we'll see at the end of the year if we come home with another state championship. That would be pretty awesome to experience, a pretty good experience. So, and he's the biggest part of that, I think. So
I think we would like to send a big thanks to T for everything he's done for this track program. Not only that, but the community of Upton, because he helps a lot of people, not just the track kids. So
yeah,
thanks, T. And that's all the time we have today. So this is Jaden.
This is Jess, and we'll see you next week.
3. Thanks. Sorry. We'll actually be on next week for week 4, so tune in to the Upton Sports Talk, and have a great day.